Good morning. I've got this camera set up here so that the one in the back, the battery was dead, so it feels kind of weird having this thing right in front of me here. We're going to be in Revelation 21 this morning. This chapter is talking about the New Jerusalem. Throughout the, thank you. There we go. That sounds better. Throughout the New Testament, we have heard and seen different parts where it talks about the end of days, that God has gone to prepare a place for us, that there is a joyous day coming when we will be united with Christ, when we will be one with God. And when we think about all of that, this is the fulfillment of all of it. Now, as we've talked before, God has given John a vision. And this vision isn't necessarily details, but rather a feeling or an understanding. So instead of it being that there is going to be, like we've mentioned many times already, the streets of gold will be translucent gold. Instead of looking at it as that this is the physical thing, it may be just exactly like that. But my vision for this is that he is giving us a picture of something more beautiful than anything that we can imagine. Now, if you were going to say that there is going to be a new heaven and a new earth, how would you describe it in a way that would show not only God's glory, the beauty of everything that he has for us, but also the loving nature of God, the fellowship that we have with God, the wonderful place that we will be where God will be everywhere, that it is his presence that will light our days. How would you explain all of that? How would you describe it in a way that would give people an understanding of God and who he is and what he has planned for us? Chapter 21 is that picture. There's a short piece in the middle when he tells us that those who choose not to follow him, those that choose not to be his children, will face the consequences. But those who choose to be his followers that are written in the book of life will be included in this story. So, I believe that those of us here today have put God first, that we are doing that for a reason. There are hundreds of thousands of believers out there who are giving God their life and sacrificing, becoming a living sacrifice for God. I believe that God is going to bring us into that promised land. But how do you describe it all? There's going to be a couple of difficulties here, because as you can see in the picture behind us, this was our trip to the beach earlier this month, and I love the ocean. I love the sea. The very first words, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea." So the difficulty is I want an ocean in heaven. And if we looked at that specifically, identifying the sea as being that there isn't going to be water, ocean in heaven, then we might get that picture. I don't really know whether there will be an ocean or not. But what the communication is of this is that the sea in the day that John lived was tumultuous. It was uncontrollable. It was life-threatening. Many people lost their lives in the ocean because they didn't have the ability to navigate through storms and things like that. And their equipment, they were dependent on the wind to give them sail. Their anchors sometimes wouldn't hold against the storms. And so there were many tumultuous things about the sea. It was very frightful, something uncontrollable, something that we don't even begin to understand. And so the picture is that In heaven, there will be peace. There will not be that tumultuous sea. So again, is it literal or is it figurative? I believe that a lot of this is figurative. So starting off there, if you are an ocean lover, have no fear. I believe there will be water in heaven and that we will enjoy that there. And he goes on, he says, I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. So, again, how do you describe something new, something different? New Jerusalem. So, why would it be Jerusalem? Why did he choose to name heaven the New Jerusalem? I believe it's because in the Old Testament, we see that Jerusalem was the city of God. It was the city where the temple was, where God dwelt in the temple. And so how would you describe heaven? The place where God existed. God dwelt. God dwelt in the city of Jerusalem. It was the centermost part of the worship of God. And so that's the description. Again, is it going to be a city? Walled city? I think you're going to see here in a minute that it is more than just a small city or a city like that. He goes on, he says, oh, by the way, beautifully dressed as a bride coming to her husband. Another description of something that we understand. You women get cheated on this one because you don't know what it's like to be standing up front when this beautifully dressed, beautiful woman that you have been looking forward to marrying walks in that back door and walks up that aisle to you. There is this surreal feeling of, oh, I do not deserve this, but I'm sure glad she's going to be mine. When you're standing up front and that woman walks up that aisle, it's beautiful. Here is this description of heaven, described as a bride coming to the groom, Jesus, the one who is inviting us to be part of that family. And he's describing that bride, that beautifully dressed. And that dress has two meanings. Not only does it bring beauty, but it also is that purity, that cleanness, that holiness. Because as we are presented to Jesus that day, we will not be wearing our dirty old sin-filled clothes, but we'll be wearing the clothes that Jesus himself has purified, has washed clean and holy. And so we approach Jesus as a beautiful bride. The beautiful bride here representing the city of Jerusalem. That same idea of being pure and holy and clean, perfect, without blemish. Going on in verse 3, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, now the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. You see, in our world today, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you have, no matter what you've done, there is a day coming when each one of us will pass away if God doesn't come first. Each one of us is going to pass away. We're all going to die. No matter how healthy we eat, no matter how great we take care of our bodies or anything else, there is a day coming when we will die. And in heaven, there is no death. There is no sorrow. There is no pain. It calls it, our physical death is the first death. There is a second death that he's going to talk about here in a minute. But right now he's talking about this is going to be death-free zone. That there is no longer going to be death. There is no longer going to be sorrow. What makes us sorrowful? We lose something or someone. We're sorrowful when things happen that we are disappointed in or unhappy about. Those sorrows are going to be no more. Why? Because God is going to be with us. We are going to be one with Him. In heaven, there will be no separation. He will be everywhere. He will be with us. He will exist. And He's going to explain that here in a minute. But through all of these things, there is no temple in heaven because He is already with us. He says, He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then He said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. I'm going to make everything new. We're not rehabilitating things. One of the things that I've learned early on is that a wrecked car is always wrecked. They can repair it, they can fix it, but it's always wrecked. I bought a car one time that was fully restored, and it leaked around the doors. It had noises that didn't make sense, all kinds of things, and it was like, this is not a new car. It's wrecked. And it tracked down the road like this. And I'm like, this is not a new car. God's not going to repair the earth. He's not going to fix up the heavens. He's making it new. It's going to be perfect, without any blemishes, without anything wrong with it. It's going to be perfect. And he goes on, he says in verse 6, He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who is thirsty, I will give to drink without cost from the spring of the water of life. He who overcomes will inherit all of this, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. I want to mention again that his reference to son is not limiting just to male. The idea of the sonship or the inheritance is the firstborn son would inherit all that the father had. And so what he's saying is that you, each one, everyone, will inherit all that I have. And so he's saying, you are the chosen one. You are the firstborn. You are the one that will inherit all that I have. But I want you to back up just a little bit to the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. The first and the last. God describes himself in a way that he's described throughout time as always being, always there. And there was one other time when he had the fellowship with man, similar to what he will have in heaven. In Garden of Eden, he walked with Adam and Eve. He talked with them. He fellowshiped with them one-on-one. And like we've talked about before, because of sin, we were separated from him. In heaven, not only will he be there with us, he will be the light that shines on the world. He will be everything that we need. And he refers to this, that there will be a spring of water that flows out of the throne. We'll see that again in the next chapter, but just to give you a little bit of an introduction to this is in John chapter 4, when he's talking to the woman at the well, he tells her that I am the living water. Drink from this water and you'll never thirst again. Well, he's alluding to the fact that there is a day in heaven when that water flows from him, that everything that we need is there, given to us from the throne of life. And if you think about it, there's the threes that those who spend time in the wilderness, out in the woods and stuff, they live by a principle of three. You can live for 3 seconds without air. You can live for 3 days without water. And you can live for 3 weeks without food. God is saying, I am that. He is the breath that we breathe. He is the water coming from the throne of life. And he is the food. I don't live by food alone, but by every every word that comes out of the mouth of God. God is everything, and He is all that we need, from the Alpha to the Omega, from the beginning to the end. He is all things to all of us. So here He is, and He says in verse 8, but the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all of the liars, their place will be in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. So believers, we've already had our first death because we died to ourselves and lived for Christ. When we are baptized, that is duplicating what Jesus did, or not duplicating, paralleling what Jesus did. Jesus died, was buried, and raised again. The baptism, we die to ourselves. We're buried with Him. We rise again to walk a new life. That's our first death. Our second death is our physical death. There will be no more deaths. In heaven, He says the second death, for those that did not believe, those did not follow Him, those who are these things that He's mentioned, they will suffer the second death then. One of the 7 angels in verse 9, who had 7 bowls full of 7 last plagues, came and said to me, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And He carried me away in the sight of in the Spirit to the great mountain high. And He showed me this holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. So He's giving us a little bit of a description here of this heaven coming down. He's already mentioned that it's come down. He's giving it to us from another perspective, because now the Spirit is taking this angel is taking him in the Spirit to a place high up in the mountain. Why would He describe it this way? I think He's describing it that I want you to get an overview. I want you to see something from above, something that you can't see from down here when you're seeing the heaven lower, when Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, is coming into view. You can't see what you can't see from up here. So He's giving us a bird's eye view of what it's going to look like when the new Jerusalem descends and the new earth comes. And He gives us this picture. And a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. Brilliance. It's bright. It's shining. Where's this brilliance coming from? Why does it look like a jasper? He says, it had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So, is it physical? Is there physically a foundation with the 12 disciples' names, or with 12 apostles' names? Or is there physically the names of the tribes written on the gates? I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, how do I say that? It's not really important to me whether that is. What really is important is that he's saying in completion, all of the tribes, all of the apostles, the completion of His plan comes to fulfillment here. And in verse 15, He says, the angel who talked with me had a measuring rod of gold and to measure the city, its gates, and its walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia. 12,000 stadia is equal to about 1,400 miles, 1,400 miles long, 1,400 miles wide, and 1,400 miles tall. Is this a physical description of the city of Jerusalem? I don't know. But my guess is what he's saying is it's big. It is huge. It is something that would hold all of mankind. It's not a small little city like what Jerusalem is. When we stood at the edge of Jerusalem and looked over the valley and looked over to the other side where what is it called, the Garden of Eden, the olive garden, we think, yeah, Gethsemane. When we looked across to that, it was like, I was shocked how small it was. When we looked at the pictures of Jerusalem and what it would have looked like, the days of David, the days of Solomon, the days of Hezekiah, which was the largest of the cities, and even the largest, it was small. It wasn't very big at all. I believe what he's saying here is, this isn't a small city. This is big. It is huge. It has no limits to its size. He measured its walls, and it was 144 cubits thick. What is 144 cubits? It's big. It's thick. The wall's about 200 feet thick. That's just the thickness of the wall. So this building here is not 200 feet long. So it'd be wider than this whole building this way. That's a thick wall. What's the purpose of saying that? Is there anything that would penetrate 200-foot thick wall? I believe what he's pointing out is it's secure. It's 1,400 miles high. Nobody's going to crawl over it. It's 200-foot thick walls. Nobody's going to penetrate it. And it has gates, 12 of them, 3 on each side. And those gates stay open all the time. What's his point in all this? Listen to this. It says, he measured its walls, and it was 144 cubits thick by man's measurement, which the angel was using. The wall was made of jasper, and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. The foundation of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, and the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase. I'm not a geologist or anything else. The 11th is jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of pure gold, like transparent glass. I don't know what it will look like, but I do believe he's trying to paint a picture of something that we have never seen. What's the largest pearl that you have ever seen? Not big enough to make a gate out of. He's giving us this picture of something huge, something big, something amazing. Beautiful rocks, some of which I've never even heard of. Definitely can't pronounce. But these things are describing something amazing, something beautiful beyond our imagination. We've seen gold, and it is beautiful, beautiful gold. But translucent gold, I've never seen. He says the city is like translucent gold. All of these things are pointing to what comes next. In 22, I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night. The glory and the honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does not nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the book of the Lamb, book of life. So, again, the picture. What does he want us to see? What does he want us to understand? A big place that's perfect, beautiful, something far beyond anything we can think or imagine. It is out of this world. And it is so amazing that he says it's worth the wait. In addition to that, the source of light is God. There will be no day or night because God is always there. He's always present, and he is the light. The source of that light that radiates like emerald, as he described it, jasper, emerald, those description of something amazing, something beautiful. All of that, the fact that God is there with us, fellowshipping with us. What's the difference between Adam and Eve and this? Adam and Eve was in a garden. It was not perfect. I mean, the dwelling place was perfect. But this is something far more beautiful and amazing. And God is there all the time. And his light is what light? Not the sun, not the moon that was created for this earth, but him. He is the presence that gives us that light. All of these things point to the fact that God has a place for us, prepared for us, those who give their lives to him. And anyone who is willing to give their life to God, God is promising them this beautiful picture. And not just a picture, but an inheritance, a dwelling. It's ours. And so in the book of Revelation, we have seen the churches of Asia represented. And he gives them directions and instructions. He talks about all of the things that are coming to this world, the plagues, the things, and all of it is pointing to the fact that he has chosen us and that we get to enjoy that inheritance. And here it is. In chapter 21, it's laid out for us, this beautiful place. In chapter 22, he expounds on that a little bit. But again, why would we want to live for him? Why would we want to give our lives to him? Besides the fact that he is perfect and knows all things, and he is our creator and can direct our footsteps and give us everything that our hearts desire, besides the fact that he has provided for us in ways that we don't even know and understand, that he has created us as his perfect creation. Besides all of that, it personifies his presence in us, with us. The perfect God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, dwelling as a whole with us and enjoying what he has promised us. All of this brings into the picture what we will get. And all he's asking us to do is follow him. He's saying, here's the prize. Here's the benefit of not following me, the destruction that's promised. But here's the prize. And he says it just like that. He goes to what the inheritance is if we choose not to follow him, and then he goes back to the prize again. And he says, what does it take? What does it take to be able to say, that's my inheritance? It's to become his children. To enjoy the inheritance that he's promised us is giving up of ourselves and living for him. And we might think to ourselves, that's a huge sacrifice. Am I willing to give that up? But in reality, it's like giving up something that's imperfect for something that's perfect. Why would I not want to do that? So there was an illustration. The preacher had promised his daughter who was 5 or 6 years old that he had something really special for her. But she needed to put down her doll that she's been carrying with her for years. It is so ragged and messed up that he wants her to put it away so that she can enjoy this new thing that he's gotten her. She doesn't want to let go of it. She doesn't want to release it because she loves it. She's very tied to that little doll. And he says, trust me, I have something better for you. I have something that you'll enjoy even more. And he brings out his new baby son and gives it to the daughter to hold and to cherish. And the daughter is just overwhelmed by this beautiful little baby that's their own. That doll was very important, and still is. But she realized that if she wasn't willing to put that down, she couldn't enjoy this new little baby that she now has in her arms. God's saying to us, I have something beautiful, something wonderful for us. And we're saying, do I want to let go of my security? Do I want to release the control of these things? God, can you control these things as well as I have? That's a joke. If I could control things 1/10 of what God could, I'd be all right, but I can't. So the thought that I am releasing things to something that God can control, we can trust him. We can put our faith in him. And he's painting this picture for us so that we will know that giving up that little doll so that we can enjoy the beautiful baby that he has for us is no sacrifice at all. To give up the things of this world so that we can enjoy the promises of heaven are very minute. This morning, as you consider these things, I want you to think about the things that keep us from living the life for Christ. What is it that's hindering us? What is it that's not allowing us to embrace what God has given us? The kingdom of heaven began when Jesus rose from the grave. He began the kingdom of heaven. We get to enjoy that. Starting now and through eternity. We get to fully enjoy those benefits in the end days.